Thank you for listening to WBN 324 Talk Radio. We now need to advise you that all shows that air on our network are strictly over 18 years old. Thank you for listening to WBN 324 Talk Radio.
What the f*** is this? This is political. Let's be honest. WTFR.
Greetings, fellow sovereign beings. You're listening to WTFR on the World Broadcasting Network. I'm Joss the Boss, except I'm nobody's boss but my own. And we're also live on dlive.tv/WTFR. That's for interactive chat. And we're on WTFR.net as well. For those listening for the first time, WTFR stands for We Think Freely Radio. Just so you know. Anyway, where else are we live? We are live on Radio Soapbox as well. And, of course, Studio 8424 and Radio 8424, curated by Mark Watson, broadcasting us from the Great Smoky Mountains of East Tennessee. So, there we go. Good crowd in. I'll also be recording this to upload to Rumble and BitChute. As and when. I've got so much editing to do, but it'll get there. So anyway, for those on the video platform, you might have noticed I'm not alone. So I've, let me just say a few things. I've got a guy here, Jeff Dietrich. I think, did I pronounce that right?
Perfect. Yeah.
That's great. Okay, so Jeff here. How did I run into Jeff? Well, for those who remember, do you remember Jenna McClelland, who I interviewed? I don't know, it's got to be 2 months ago now. Maybe closer to 3 months ago. Anyway, so Jenna, she hasn't uploaded for a while to YouTube. But anyway, she did a video probably, 2-3 weeks ago now. And so I left a comment in the comment section under her YouTube video, and it was talking about kind of mind control, and I remember I said about how I'd learned a new word today, tulpa, which is a bit like an egregore or egregore, however you want to pronounce it. And for everyone who's now thinking, what's an egregore, what's a tulpa? Well, an egregore is kind of like is a thought pattern, like a collective thought pattern, which, a good example of that would be like your favorite football team. Everybody supports the same football team. Everybody kind of wears the same clothes. Everybody sings the same chants and all of that kind of thing. And everybody stands up and cheers when a goal's scored or whatever. The same thing is you can apply to religions as well. So an egregore is kind of like a collective thought pattern, as opposed to a tulpa, which I think came from Buddhism originally. And this is, how best to describe it? It's like an imaginary friend that we conjure. Possibly after years and years of being told the same story over and over and over again, and you come to believe something to be true, and that something, perhaps if it's, it could be kids getting all excited about Santa Claus or whatever, the character, or Peter Pan or the bogeyman or whatever, it can become so real to you if you're not sure of your own mind. And so vulnerable people might begin to believe in a bogeyman that isn't real. It was born out of a fairy tale, perhaps. And yet it comes to have such a hold over people's minds. So it's similar to an egregore, but it's kind of a little bit more, it's like on the personal level, I suppose. And anyway, I remember leaving a comment talking about this on Jenna's most recent upload. I think she's hopefully Jenna's listening tonight as well. If you are higher, and and then Jeff, you replied to my email, my comment rather, and mentioned something about checking out a documentary that you'd made, and I don't know, a week or something went by. I'm very, very busy, and we can't always jump to it straight away. But anyway, I was curious about this documentary that you'd put together, and I'll say this much: it is not for the faint of heart. So this is a documentary. It's called "Marked by the Devil," a circumcision documentary. So it's kind of following similar lines to Jenna's talking points. So I'm just dropping hang on, Jeff's documentary. I've just dropped the YouTube link in the chat there, so do check it out at some point. Save it, but you need a strong constitution for some of it. It's quite brutal, and yes. Anyway, listen, I've probably said enough. We're not necessarily going to be talking about circumcision. I think we kind of exchanged emails a week or so ago to say that the topic of circumcision, let's call it genital mutilation. For a lot of people, they don't seem affected by it; they just crack on. But a lot of people are extremely traumatized by it, and there's a whole movement associated with it called intactivism. So if you're an intactivist, you're perhaps someone who's been a victim of this and suffered the trauma, and you're fighting for the rights of men to remain intact and to raise awareness, etc. And the same kind of things happening with FGM, with another certain Abrahamic religion, but we'll get into that in a bit, no doubt. So anyway, well, Jeff, I kind of feel like I've introduced you, but please introduce yourself. Tell us a bit about yourself.
Sure. Yeah, so I grew up in South Carolina in the United States, and I grew up Christian, actually. And the Christian religion actually duct tapes together the Old Testament. So we're kind of Jewish as well. So I like to call it Judeo-Christianity. Mm-hmm. So for the past few years, I started deconstructing, and I started researching the basis of the mythology, especially like the mythology of the New Testament, Jesus' miracles, the iconography, stuff like that. And just recently I started looking at the Old Testament, and that was related to my work with circumcision. So for the past year or so, I began foreskin restoration. I was circumcised as an infant, and the restoration has given me some of my body back. So I've regrown some coverage, and I feel a lot better. But it brought up a lot of trauma and a lot of pain, a lot of feelings of loss. And
yeah,
so I had to explore that and really dig deep. And, for me, I wanted to find out why it's being done. And
sure, yeah.
when I looked to the Bible, I didn't find very good answers. In fact, I found lies. So I kind of want to go down that, talk about the Bible, and then we can talk about the other Abrahamic religions that came from that.
Sure. Yeah.
But it's said to be a covenant of fruitfulness. Mm-hmm. But it damages our sexual anatomy, so we have trouble with sex, we have trouble reproducing, so it's not fruitful.
No.
I also have listened to a lot of accounts of satanic ritual abuse. Okay. And the parallels are overwhelming. And I've come to believe that's exactly what it is.
Okay.
And the egregore, that's interesting because I believe religious gods are egregores because we create gods to give away our power.
Uh-huh.
And then we create religions to give ourselves power.
Well, some people.
Right. The
Yeah.
leaders, the enforcers.
Yeah.
So it's kind of ironic that the Bible is called Testament because it's a test of the mind.
Yes. Yeah.
Just like the government is a govern of our mind.
Yeah, it's a nautical term, isn't it? Gubernare. It means to steer the mind. Same thing. Mind control.
Right. So I love the name of your radio is Free Thinkers, because that's really what's most important to me, is to always question things and do the work, the research to figure things out for myself.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm about. I want to caution and warn anybody who's religious still that this is not an attack on you, but I think we all have to have the ability to separate ourselves from our beliefs.
Yeah.
Just so that we can examine them, and question them and not feel offended.
No, exactly. I think you do make a very important point. In no way we're not setting out to offend anyone or anything. And I'm sure you've, Jeff, I'm sure you've heard rumours, I think especially in the wake of the Charlie Kirk, some might call it a ritual sacrifice. I don't know what you think about that, but there's certain schools of thought. But anyway, whatever, a guy was murdered. And since then there's and for a while now there's been I've heard Christians, I know Christian people. One of my customers is a Christian, and I knew her back 30 years ago when I was a practicing Christian, so to speak. There was a time I was a born again, Bible believing, baptized, a born again Christian with a personal relationship with my Lord and Savior, and every inch of my existence was all consuming. I was fervently in love. I tell you, I'm not going to lie. I remember a guy prayed for me once years ago. Maybe we'll get to the story at some point, but I had a bit of a tough time in my younger years, and I've dabbled in Satanism and all kinds of stuff, and I got my fingers burned, and so I was running in the opposite direction. I didn't know it, I guess, at the time, but anyway, I met this guy. Long story short, well, I'd met him a while before, and we kind of used to smoke cannabis and get drunk together and stuff, but he disappeared off the scene for a while, and then he came back on the scene, and he'd converted to Christianity, and I was telling him my woes, and he said, "Can I pray for you?" And he laid hands on me and started praying in tongues. And whatever that was at the time. And all I can tell you is I was filled with something. I was so drunk in this something that entered me that day that I fell off the wall I was sitting on, and I felt wonderful. And he told me that was the Holy Spirit. And so it's been a very, very real experience for me. I didn't actually convert to Christianity for another 2 years. And so I was about 19 when I actually became a Christian, so to speak, and I got, and that was only because of another friend who nagged me senseless for about 6 weeks. We used to sit there and talk about the meaning of life and whatnot for hours on end every week. And one day he came running up to me and he said, "Joss, it's Jesus, man, it's Jesus." And he'd read this book called The Normal Christian Life by Watchman Nee, whoever that is. I think he's a Chinese missionary or something or other. Not read it myself, but anyway, he nagged me senseless for 6 weeks, and I thought anything to shut the guy up. So I started going along to church, and I kind of got into the fervency, although I always felt on the peripheries. And I kind of, I was looking at all these other people who've probably been there since birth, and I was this sort of unhinged, half-stoned, half-baked renegade with long hair and kind of hippie clothing, and I stuck out like a sore thumb. And it just, I don't know, I think they tried their best to embrace me. They didn't know. I don't think they knew what to make of me or us, really. So I can't criticize them, and although they were very kind people, but I sort of went on with the fervency, true fervency, and I just, all I saw was glazed expressions from most people in the church, and so I still, to this day, I 100% believe in a higher power. I just like to call it the Most High, and that kind of covers all bases. There's no doubt in my mind that there is an intelligent mastermind behind the universe. That's me. I don't know what your views are now, but I cannot be drawn any further. I will not go there with dogma, because it's kind of like all the, I think the message of Jesus, having sort of had been tortured on the cross, and he kind of, he still had the good grace whilst he was hanging on the cross to say, "Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do." I think that's a great message, and it's a great allegory as a way to live, to have more grace in your own life and compassion towards other people. I think that's an important thing. But then there's the dogma side of it, and this is what ties people up in knots. And the idea that Christ, sorry, I know I'm hogging the mic a little bit, but I'm trying to sort of lay a foundation here as well, so we can bounce off of each other. So this is my understanding of it, and it's always rankled with me so much, because this idea that Christ died to pay the price for everyone to get into heaven kind of tells me, well, what's the point? I've heard preachers say you could go out, you could murder 10,000 people tomorrow, but Jesus will still love you. And it's like, yeah, you don't really want to go and tell a sociopath or a psychopath that kind of message, because they might think, well, I'll go and try that out then, and whatever, and then we hear some story in the news about a lone shooter, the usual narratives we get fed, and all the rest of it. So I don't know. I think it's very dangerous. Again, I know there's the scripture, I can never remember where, Acts possibly, I don't know, but Paul the Apostle saying, I think it's Paul, isn't it? "What shall we say then? Shall we continue to live in sin that grace may abound? May it never be." And stuff. So I think, yeah, that's okay. So it's confusing, because it's kind of, you got the free gift, but oh no, you mustn't be a sinner, but our works are like filthy rags, so it doesn't matter what we do, or we're damned if we do and damned if we don't. And I just think this mangles people's minds, their capacity to function. It shuts you down, because it's like 3 contradicting messages in one message, and I fell victim to it, and I had to walk away. That was me. It didn't add up. But as
Oh,
I
yeah.
say, I 100% believe it. And I still pray of a fashion, you could say that, but not within the context of dogma. Anyway, look, I've hogged the mic enough. Jeff, thoughts?
Well, yeah, I agree with you. There's a lot of contradictions. There's a verse in the Old Testament that says a son cannot pay for the crimes of his father, right?
Uh-huh.
So it doesn't really make much sense to sacrifice one person for the crimes of his father or other people. And it's not a legal or judicial practice. I mean, nobody can take the punishment for somebody else, so. But I kind of want to undercut the whole thing about blood sacrifice.
Sure.
Jesus's death is portrayed as a blood magic child sacrifice, if you think about it. Christianity tries to peg Jesus to the Old Testament God Yahweh. They try to make him out to be a child sacrifice to their God.
Yeah.
So let me take it all the way back to Genesis 17.
Okay.
So Genesis 17 is the passage about Abram being instructed by God to circumcise his foreskin to enter a covenant. And it said, all the foreskins of the men in his family, including his slaves, must be circumcised or they'll be cut off from the tribe. So there we have threats.
Wow.
It says, all males of future generations must be circumcised on their 8th day of life.
Yeah.
So later on in Exodus 22, God says, you shall give me the firstborn among your sons. You shall do the same with your cattle. 7 days it shall remain with its mother, and on the 8th day you shall give it to me.
Uh-huh.
So here we have 8th day circumcision and 8th day firstborn sacrifice.
Interesting, yeah.
And so these are the first 2 books of the Bible, and we already have genital mutilation as a sacrifice to God and child sacrifice. So my premise is that the Abrahamic religions are based on child abuse and animal abuse.
Okay.
So it's taught that these things provide redemption. People are pretty aware of the whole animal sacrifice thing, but I don't think they're aware of the child sacrifice. In the land of Canaan was named after the grandson of Noah. And we know from archaeological studies or excavations that they had significant temple worship, including drug use, temple prostitutes, multiple worshiping of gods, human sacrifices, animal sacrifices, dating all the way back to the 18th century BCE. So the Bible tries to cover their tracks. In a couple passages, it says, the God of the Bible would never command such things, and do not sacrifice your kids in the fire to Baal. Well, Baal is just a generic term for Lord.
Okay. That's a new one on me. Okay.
Yeah, look
Because
it up.
I've heard of, or Baal, as people call it, Baal and Molech.
Right. Right. So Baal is a generic Semitic term for Lord, and Moloch is a type of sacrifice. It means to pass by fire.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
Okay, so all of these historical traditions and findings, and even mentioning in the Bible, only confirms that that's what these people were doing. There's some trains of thought on why they would do it, particularly because they were heavily dependent on agriculture, harvest, and also the weather. So in order to try to win favor on the weather or, even in being conquered by other tribes, instead of letting the other tribes kill their children, they would kill their children as a sacrifice.
Yeah.
So, although there may be practical explanations, they're doing it to the God of the Bible, Yahweh.
Yeah.
So we have other examples of this. And if people don't believe me, go look it up. We have Exodus 13, where it says that the Israelites were to sacrifice their firstborn sons to remember the exodus of Egypt and the sacrifice or the killing of the firstborn Egyptian sons.
Uh-huh.
And this is one of the verses that they put in their little black cube on their head.
The Tefillin, yeah.
Yeah. And at the end of that passage, it says, do this to remember how great and mighty your Lord is, and wear it as a sign on the head, forehead, or the hand.
Yeah.
And instantly it makes me think about the mark of the beast in Revelation. That's to be worn on the head or the hand.
Yeah.
Right? So, and this is the same time that the God told him to start doing the circumcision. I like to call circumcision the mark of the beast.
Okay.
So I'll give you another example. Exodus 22. That's the 8th day firstborn sacrifice. And then here's another one I've never heard people talk about. Numbers 31.
Okay.
So this is the destruction of the Midianites. So God required a certain allotment of the plunder. He allowed all the Israelites to plunder and steal all the gold, the jewelry, and he let them keep 32,000 virgins.
That's nice, yeah.
Right. And this just means children, okay? So the Lord required 32 of those children to be as burnt offerings.
Right.
Okay. So, and what do you think that those soldiers, the Israelite soldiers, did to the other 32,000 girls?
Yeah, we can probably all take a wild guess there.
Right. So rape, sex slaves, child bride marriages. In fact, Moses' wife was a Midianite.
Okay.
So here again, I come back to my premise that the Bible is based on child abuse and animal abuse. So let's go on further.
Can I'd just like to interrupt very briefly. Yeah. I've kind of heard this suggested before that, like I say, I believe in a higher power without question, but it starts out the book of Genesis, God, plural for starters, Elohim, was more than one. That's of right. them, said, come let us reform man in our image. And God made this, and he made that, and he made the other, and he saw that it was good. And then all of a sudden, it's like this sociopath, psychopath, nothing's good. It's like the worst form of Stockholm syndrome imaginable. And the Ten Commandments come along. You shall have no other gods before me. Right. It's like a completely different character. It's schizophrenic.
Yeah.
And anyway, I just wanted to chuck that in, but carry on, please. Okay.
So frequently the stories talk about building of altars and ritual sacrifice. And it says that the aroma of burnt flesh is pleasing to the Lord over 40 times in the Old Testament.
Wow.
And this kind of connects to the idea of altar personality, because when people are ritually abused and tortured, it creates altars in their personality because of the disassociation.
Uh-huh.
And Genesis is not an original myth. There's a term called syncretism.
Yeah.
And syncretism is an ancient practice of blending and adopting myths to basically be more palatable.
Okay. Yeah, I've heard of it, or I think it's take another, I think, explanation of syncretism is you glean truths from various, whatever resonates with you, I guess. And I don't know if you're familiar with a guy called Santos Bonacci.
Yep.
Yeah.
So he takes it all the way back to astrology.
Okay, yeah.
Right.
And that
so
fascinates me.
It really does. That's where it all comes from. So anyway, Genesis is based on Urudu Genesis, which is the story of Enlil. And Enlil created all the world and even had a day of rest, just like the Genesis Yahweh. And he was unhappy with the creation because they created so much noise that he couldn't rest. So he decided to destroy them with a flood.
Yeah.
But one of the lower gods named Enki decided to go warn the people and tell them to build a boat. He warned one of the priests named Zuidra. He said, build a boat and spare one pair of each of the animals and your family. So this is the same story as Noah.
Uh-huh.
So a lot of times Christians and religious people are told to believe these stories as fact, but they're not fact. They're myths. And they're usually based on older myths in the first place.
I think wasn't the Ten Commandments that came from ancient Egypt or Sumeria or something like that originally? And I thought that you know way more about the Bible than I do, but I just find it curious how God created Adam and then formed Eve from, well, there's again, here's another story. I don't know, perhaps you've familiar. I know someone who speaks Hebrew, and I don't know whether you do, but the word rib is the same word for side in Hebrew, and also straight away this puts an entirely different complexion on Adam wanted a mate. And so God put him to sleep and then took one side of Adam, perhaps his feminine side. In other words, was Adam originally kind of an androgynous being?
Yeah, according to Gnostic thought, it was an androgynous being who created Sophia, and Sophia is the mother goddess who then created all of the lower gods, and Yahweh is one of the lower gods.
Interesting, and that takes us into henotheism, which kind of, Yahweh assuming is one of the lower gods when he says, you shall have no other gods before me. So, right. Okay, so there are others then. Interesting. Exactly. And yet the other thing, so God created Adam and Eve, and they were supposed to be the first humans. Right. And all of a sudden there's these Egyptians, and they're all bad. Where did they come from? How did they fit into this crazy story?
Well, I want to talk about that, but first let me mention that the reason the Jewish taught that story in Genesis that way about the creation of man is basically misogynist, because what they're saying is that man is in the image of God, but females are not. Okay, and this is confirmed by the Apostle Paul in the New Testament. In 1 Corinthians, one of the church people asks, should we wear head coverings? And Paul says men do not need to cover their face because they're in the image of God, whereas women are in the image of a man, therefore they do need to cover their face.
Wow.
Yeah. So, it's horrible. But yeah, you see that with the Muslim religion. They require their women to be covered. Yeah,
and certain sort of Christian sects, like the Plymouth Brethren, for example, the women to this day have little head scarves, and their hair's got to be a certain length. And of course, women must submit to their husbands and all the rest of it. And yet, you look at all the rest of nature. Where does new life always come from?
Right, Divine Mother. Yep. Yeah, it's totally perverted. And the Egypt thing's interesting too, because Egypt predates the Israelites, and the Sumerians predate the Egyptians,
Yeah.
and astrology predates all of that. So, but that's where these myths and these gods come from, and they're originally identified by their shapes in the sky or the planets. Each planet is associated with a major god. So, like Saturn is associated with Kronos, who later became Set. Set is famous in Egyptian mythology.
Yeah.
And the story of Set is pretty interesting because Yahweh is based on Set.
Okay.
Yeah, so how that story goes is Osiris was the god of order, and he was a sun god.
Yeah.
He was a benevolent god who ran Egypt, basically. And his wife was Isis.
Yeah.
And Osiris had an evil brother named Set. And Set killed Osiris because he was jealous. He also mutilated him. He cut him into 13 pieces.
I've heard 1,000 pieces, however many, but a certain member was removed that Isis couldn't find again. Yeah.
Yeah, so Isis decided to resurrect him with his penis, his phallus, right? That's where we get the term resurrect. Okay?
Goodness me. Yeah, I'd never put that one together. Goodness. Yeah,
right.
Interesting.
So she took his phallus that she found in the wilderness and had intercourse with it. And therefore, she had a divine conception. And her son
Immaculate Conception. Yeah.
Immaculate Conception, right. And so now we have Horus, who is the son of God.
Yep.
Okay. So Horus became the new sun god in Egypt. And to get revenge against Set, they engaged in a bunch of duels in the wilderness. And this kind of parallels Jesus' duel in the wilderness with Satan, his 40-day duel. So Set and Horus had these battles. And one of Set sexually abuses Horus. He basically rapes him. And so to get revenge, Horus then genitally mutilates Set.
Okay, yeah.
He takes one of his testicles.
Oh.
And so then Set decides to gouge out the eye of Horus. So that's why we have the symbology of the all-seeing eye.
Yes.
And it's on our money. It's on our money, our movies. Everybody in Hollywood has the one eye tattoo.
Wow.
So, it signifies mutilation of something good, you know? And I believe the connection between Set being genitally mutilated and Yahweh requiring circumcision or genital mutilation, I think they're trying to be in the image of their God, basically. Also, Kronos has a myth that in order to help him in a battle with a rival god, he sacrificed one of his begotten sons. Yeah. And then he circumcised himself. So this theme of genital mutilation and circumcision with the gods is actually quite common, and the whole point of it is to remove their human nature so that they can become more divine or more etheric, basically.
And yet we were designed the way we are.
Right.
There's got to be, I think, I think some would say you could say the most primitive, is it even a religion? Our purpose is to live. And everything in existence has a beginning, a middle, and an end. It's birth, death, whatever, rebirth, And you see this with the trees, the plants. They, winter months come along, and the trees, they shed all their fruit. It falls to the ground, and you got the scripture, haven't you? Unless a seed falls into the ground and dies. I forget it word for word, but it's telling the same story throughout all creation, everything on this planet, flora and fauna, day and night. So there's a common theme. Our purpose for being is to continue that, surely. And then you've got these religions, as I call them, the Abrahamic Religions, seems to be flying in the teeth of that. And it's all, I think a lot of Christians are hung up about, you can't have sex before marriage. But actually that was a letter that Paul the Apostle wrote to a church at that time, where maybe there was it was a bit like Sodom and Gomorrah. Everyone was shagging anything that moved or something. You don't know. They might have had a bit of a problem there, but that's an idea I've heard, that it was a specific letter written to a group of people at that time. Yeah. But anyway, where I suppose I was just saying that everything about the religions is flying in the teeth of the most primitive, the most simple, which some might.
Right.
I don't know. Anyway, carry on, please.
Well, I agree with you. I think religions separate ourselves from humanity.
Yeah.
Some of the premises of religions require that. For example, it says to love God over your own family, or to love God more than your own spouse, Mm-hmm. So, and obviously with these rituals, you have to. I mean, if a mother and father are going to hold down their baby boy while he's tortured and mutilated, and a lot of them die from this. I mean, especially in the old times. The death rate from circumcision is still considerable in modern time hospital settings, where we have sterilization and Gomco clamps and everything to prevent hemorrhaging. But in the old times, they probably died often. And I'm a little familiar with the Jewish ritual side of it. This is a really interesting book called Marked in the Flesh. And it's written by a Jewish historian. And he's the one who explained to me the substitution of eighth-day ritual sacrifice and eighth-day circumcision. But he explains in the other Jewish texts, such as the Midrash, the Zohar, the Talmud, that there was times when the mothers would go to the priest and say, my first 3 boys, or my first and second sons, have died from circumcision. How many more times are we going to try this? And the priest eventually decided that you could not skip circumcision until the 4th son. So three sons would have to die from circumcision before the 4th would be spared.
Wow. It's incredible, isn't it?
It really is.
And
but
it's making up the rules as you go along as well. It's
right.
Insane.
This is how disconnected this stuff gets us from our own family, our own flesh and blood. It's a slippery slope. I mean, even the stuff with Christianity. I mean, we're told to accept so many absurdities that we don't know which way's up anymore,
Sure.
And it took me a long time to get out of it, but I eventually started finding so many holes in the boat that it began sinking, and I realized why it's called the Holy Bible.
Yeah.
Okay. And so now I try to have a whole spirit. I don't want a Holy Spirit. I want my whole spirit. Okay?
Yeah.
So it's been a long journey, but the circumcision thing just blasted me out of it. No looking back. I mean, this has totally opened up my eyes to the depravity, the evil of it. It's horribly sad that it's still going on.
It is. I mean, it's is primitive at best. I think, you know, it's funny how, I mean, when I think of, you know, I'm not Jewish, I'm not circumcised myself, but, you know, my pain was the emotional side of things, and kind of that's my interest in this, really. And it's just because I came from a sort of a, you know, well, I certainly wasn't born into a Christian family, that's for sure, but this was a choice I made to become a Christian whilst in a already very traumatized state. So I didn't really know what I was getting myself into. And the irony is, but I'll just tell this little story quick. The irony is, in fact, I think I might have mentioned this with Jenna, the thing about I cried out to God for healing for so many years, and healing never came. And the irony is, healing didn't begin to come until I walked out. And I actually, you could say I went from the frying pan to the fire, because I ended up joining the Church of Scientology. I spent a year in the Church of Scientology, but at least the Church of Scientology gives you something practical that you can apply to your life. It's your choice to do so, but if you apply these edicts, these guidelines, your life will get better.
For sure.
And I applied it, and my life did get better, but I still carried this deep fear within me. And this is the egregore, the tulpa, the fear of this big ogress sort of sky daddy that's going to throw lightning bolts at me and forever cast me out of the book of life because I dared to not want to suffer.
Right.
That's the mind I was trapped in for so many years.
Right. Yeah. Trauma-based mind control is very powerful.
Yeah.
When they leverage fear and trauma, it basically becomes mind control. Because we have to basically plead for mercy, and we have to accept whatever they tell us. So yeah, the threat of hell, that's huge. I think most people, most Christians, that's probably what's holding them back.
I think so. I've more come round to the way of thinking of reincarnation of late. I mean, you know, whether that's what happens or what, but I think it's certainly more plausible to me now than it ever has been.
Right.
But it's absolutely torturous. And the fact that we're only alive for what average 80 something years on this planet, and yet we're going to spend all eternity because of a few things we screwed up in our life, our very brief life. We're going to spend forever and beyond suffering in hellish pain, burning forever and ever and ever and ever and ever, tortured and tormented by demons. And yet the very fear of that goes to prove that in this lifetime you are tortured by demons or whatever has been conjured in your heart and your mind. Yeah, crazy. The mind control keeps you in line. It keeps you from advancing too far in life. You know, only the billionaires are allowed to do that. But we have to have a cloak of humility. We can't be too successful. So we end up policing ourselves. Yeah. Conditioning ourselves to fail.
Yeah, and I think Christianity, especially, it hides us from ourselves. Because Christians are taught to give all of their pain and all of their fear and hope onto Jesus. So they're never really dealing with those feelings themselves. They're trying to cover it up. They're trying to pass it along, just like they're trying to pass along their sins. And so I think we do need radical accountability. We need to take that time to work on ourselves and look at what's hurting us, look at our fears and underlying traumas and figure those out, not try to pass them along to higher entities.
So you, I'm assuming you've done shadow work.
I'm doing it. Yeah. It's hard.
Oh, it never really ends, does it?
Right. Right.
But yeah, I sort of got to the stage, I don't know, it was about 6-7 years ago. I didn't do shadow work. Shadow work did me. It's almost like I was pinned to the wall one day and made internally to face up to all the rotten things that I'd done. And I couldn't lie to myself. I couldn't deny it.
Right.
I just had to say, yes, that's me. I've done all of these things. I could make excuses that I was traumatized and what have you. But if I wronged someone, you can't make an excuse, oh, well, yeah, but I was traumatized at the time. I didn't know what I was doing. It doesn't change the fact that you wronged someone else and they've now got to suffer their trauma. And so, yeah, the big hope, I think the great hope is absolutely there's great comfort to be drawn from shadow work, and it's tough when you have to sit there and embrace all that you are, the ugly side of you, but just sit there and try to be at peace about it and solemnly vow within oneself that you will never ever go there again, or something. Or certainly we hope not to. But I think, yeah, there is, as much as anything, that is true repentance means to turn around and stop doing bad.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think also Christianity imbues a sense of nihilism. It kind of makes us start to believe that this life is but a mist and a fleeting vapor, and it doesn't matter. We're supposed to be living for heaven, living for eternity, right? And so we really need to live in the present. We need to make every day count. We need to do the work, reach out to people, do the research, figure out what we've been told, what we believe. I think that's so important. Yeah. Sorry, I lost my train of thought, but living in the present is huge. And I think that's kind of lost with religion.
Yeah. And I think was it the word nihilism you used? Yeah,
nihilism, where this present life doesn't matter. We're only living for eternity or heaven.
Yeah. So I think as well, it encourages, it kind of encourages a cop-out, I think. And I say that not because I want to accuse Christians of being cop-outs. I don't want it to come across like that, but it is like I said in the first few minutes about the confusion I had, because on the one hand, Christ has died for your sins and everybody else's sins, and your works are like filthy rags, and yet what shall we continue to live in sin that grace may abound? May it never be. Oh, so we are expected to do works then, but our works are like filthy rags. But it's just this circular argument, and I think it causes, certainly did within me, it caused absolute despair to the point where you just resign. It's like you quit. You just can't do life anymore. And it's like you hang up all your responsibilities and you say, I'm just done with this. And it kind of cabbages you. Or it did with me. Maybe I'm just a weirdo. Maybe that's how it affected me, and it doesn't affect most Christians that way. And if Christians are listening in, you're shaking your heads and saying, no, that's not what God's about at all. God's about love, and God's about this, and it's, and whatever. I mean, lovely. If it works for you, great. But I can't help thinking. I have this thing called a brain and my own imagination, and I've been a doubting Thomas, so to speak, my entire life. I've questioned everything, and I just can't obey.
Okay.
Because I'm told.
Yeah. So when I learned about the mythology behind the New Testament, it really helped me. It helped me appreciate it, but also not be so scared about this stuff. But have you heard about the Gospels of Homer?
I'm gonna say no. I've heard of Homer.
Yeah, so he wrote it's an anonymous writer, probably a group of writers, but they wrote the Iliad and the Odyssey.
Yeah.
Okay, so the god in those stories was Odysseus.
Yeah.
And there's many parallels between the stories of Odysseus and Jesus's miracles.
Okay.
So, for example, walking on water and calming the seas. Well, Odysseus had a very similar story where the winds were causing a storm on the water, and his followers became very, very scared and doubting of him. But he was able to calm the seas and reassure them that he was powerful and that they were safe. And that's very similar to the Jesus story.
Yeah, yeah.
Here's another one. Dionysus was known as the god of wine, and over 5 times he turned water into wine. And many people basically acknowledged his divinity because of that ability. And it turns out that's Jesus's very first miracle, turning the water to the wine at the wedding.
Uh-huh.
So, and here's another one. Do you remember when Jesus did an exorcism and sent the demons into a flock of pigs?
Yeah.
And the pigs went over the cliff or whatever it was. So Dionysus did the same thing. And these gospels, these Greco myths were written hundreds of years before the New Testament. So there's a famous Christian college here in town called Bob Jones University. And they're very traditional, but they had a scholar that did a PhD there. His name is Dennis MacDonald. And he wrote a book about this, about the parallels between Greek myths and the New Testament. And I found that very encouraging and enlightening, because his conclusion is that these are meant to be beautiful, syncretic myths that tie whole cultures together. But they're not to be interpreted literally. These miracles didn't happen as a fact. They happened as a lesson, as a metaphor to teach us things, you know? So some of the forefathers of the United States, like Thomas Jefferson, he rewrote the gospel. He basically took out all the miracles that were based on myths and kept Jesus's words, which I think is very appropriate, because although I'm not a Christian, I do live by Jesus's words and teachings. I think they're all very wholesome.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Yeah.
So that was interesting for me to learn about. Some of the channels I like to learn from are Gnostic Informant and Harmonic Atheist. Both of those are on YouTube.
Okay, I'll tell you what. Perhaps it would be good if when we're done here, however long this lasts, if you could send me a list of links.
Yeah, sure.
And stuff like that, including those 2 channels. I think it would be good to put in the channel, the video description afterwards. But yeah, please carry on.
Okay, so Jesus's early ministry was called the Nazarene movement. The Nazarene movement forbade animal sacrifice. They were the ones who were going into the temples and shutting down the animal sacrifice business. And that earned them a very negative reputation with the people in charge. But Jesus called those priests a den of thieves.
Mm-hmm.
The word there he used for thieves meant violent ones. Okay. So he was very, very much against blood sacrifice. And that's all it was. The priest would charge foreigners to buy their animals. They were not allowed to bring in their own animals. They had to buy them from the priests. So it was a huge money racket operation. And so Jesus did not want unneeded suffering on these animals for people's supposed sin. And so he was in there shutting that down, flipping the tables. And John the Baptist and James' brother, or Jesus's brother named James, they were all vegetarian. That was part of the Nazarene movement.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And when Jesus went off to study when he was young, he studied with the Essenes. So this is another group. And the early Gospels that wrote about Jesus were the Gnostic Gospels. And there was also another Jesus movement called the Ebionites.
Sorry, the how do you...
Ebionites.
E-B-O-N.
That's right.
Or
yep.
Ebonites. Yeah, I think I may have heard of that. I wanted to clear that as opposed to the Edomites.
Oh, right.
Totally different bunch. Yeah, I just wanted to clear that. Carry on, yeah.
Yeah. So these groups basically preached all of the wholesome things we hear from Jesus, to love your enemy, to treat your neighbor as you would yourself, to forgive so that you'll be forgiven, to spare animals from suffering, all of these positive things. And by the time that Constantine, the Roman emperor, instituted Christianity as the state religion was in 376 AD. It's almost 350 years after Jesus died. And he considered all of Jesus's movements heretics. And he had all those people killed. He destroyed all of those gospels, or at least tried to, and instituted the Pauline scriptures. So Paul, he started out being named Saul.
That's right.
And he claims he had a vision of Jesus.
On the road to Damascus, yeah.
On the road to Damascus. And suddenly he was enlightened with everything he needed to write down. So basically, Paul wrote the New Testament.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's already a totally different doctrine or a mutation of what Jesus's mission was. And Paul is the one who framed Jesus as a blood sacrifice. Okay, so I think Jesus would be very offended and disturbed to find out that people are considering him a blood sacrifice to the God of the Jews, when he told the Jews, your father is the devil, you're the synagogue of Satan, right? So he is against all of this stuff. He came to destroy religion. He came to destroy the law. And a couple hundred years later, the government is framing Jesus as part of that, So it's, I've been reading the Gnostic scriptures, and they make a lot more sense to me. But if we live by Jesus's words and actions, I think, we'll be on the right path. But religion is a total contortion, and it's a continuation of the Old Testament. The whole blood magic ritual sacrifice thing, it's got to go. We have got to grow out of this and evolve as a species.
Yeah, sure. And again, wasn't it? It was Christ who said, "Greater things will you do than I have." In other words, he could walk on water, but maybe we could walk through walls. And when the paraplegic or something, Christ said, take up your bed and walk, whatever, or whichever story. It's a long time since I read it, but your faith has healed you. He didn't say, I have healed you. Your faith has healed you.
Right.
And I like how, I was talking about this the other week, prayer. I don't know. Are you familiar with a guy called Greg Braden?
No,
he's I call him Wolverine's dad. Wolverine from X-Men. He's kind of like a 70-year-old version of him. That's how he looks. And I don't pay too much attention to him, but I liked how he framed essentially what Jesus said was when you, I think, was it Christ who said, when you pray, believe that you've already received it.
Yeah.
And Greg Braden, how he put it was, immerse yourself in the feeling that you've already received what it is that you want. So there's no pleading. There is no begging some tyrannical sky daddy who may or may not bless you according to what mood he's in that day or something. And so it shows me that we have incredible power.
Right.
Call it assertiveness, intention, power of intention, and you can feel intention on other people. You know, I worked in a kitchen years ago, and the head chef, he was ex-army, but he'd forgotten that he was ex-army, and he'd walk into the kitchen and everyone would be terrified of him, just his presence. He carried so much power of intention. And I think that's, I know I've gone off on a bit of a tangent here, but I don't think there's too much difference between that. He absolutely knew his sovereignty and the power to bark orders in that kitchen, and he expected everything ship-shaped and everything had to be just so. And if you cocked up, you were gonna feel his wrath. And so he gave off such a presence. It'd kind of make you go weak at the knees, you know. Nice enough guy when he wasn't in the kitchen. But don't get on the wrong side of him. And so I think it's kind of the same thing in a way, to have that much confidence in your word, to be absolutely certain of something, you can effectively manifest it into being. But I don't know, it's like the saying, God helps those who help themselves. Where did that actually come from? Because I don't know, I never read that in the Bible, but apparently that's the thing. Anyway, yeah. I think whatever you do, it requires some action to sort of set the ball rolling, but it is your faith that brings things about. And so once again, there's, you know, I think kind of modern, more sort of new age thinking is that, you know, we all have a part of God in us. We are all the divine. And it's like a giant smashed mirror. And it does kind of seem plausible, albeit extremely blasphemous to the Christians, no doubt. But we've lost touch with just how powerful we are. And all religion seeks to do is to diminish that knowledge and get us all thinking, oh, I am so wretched, I am but a worm, I'm undeserving, and hence you never exercise the almighty power that is vested in you by the author of the universe, or whatever, you know. I just wanted to chuck that in there. Sorry.
That's
massive
true.
Tangent.
That's true. Some of the Jesus worship songs really bother me. They say stuff like, make me weak so that I may strength, or empty me of myself so that I may be filled with you, or I'm powerless without you.
Yeah.
All this stuff that
I am weak and I need your love to heal me.
Right. I'm broken.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. You know, great song and all that, but the language is there. Is it a blessing or is it a curse?
It's a curse. Words have power. I mean, when we say and think these things, it creates. That's what an egregore is. It's a creation by our thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
People wonder why they have bad luck. Well, if they have negative thinking, those kind of things will happen to them. Yeah,
I know that one. Oh goodness, I'm trying to unlearn being negative, and I've been so negative for so many years. But you see the state of the world.
Right.
Everything, we're all being carried to hell in a handcart and stuff. And yet I'm trying to sort of get into this way of thinking that, I thank the universe that everything's going to be just fine. And that we won't have to embrace that digital ID thing Starmer's threatening to bring in the UK. I don't know, whatever, but trying to get into, immerse myself in the feeling that we got the power to overcome this, and bad things do not need to manifest because of other people's belief in what the media tells them is going to happen.
Yeah.
Because ultimately nothing's actually happened. We're just told something bad's coming. And then everybody reads it and they're all like, oh my goodness. And what have they done? They have immersed themselves in the feeling that something really bad's going to come. That is prayer.
Right. Right.
So we bring it on ourselves.
And while we're on prayer, I find it kind of ironic that people end their prayer with the term amen or amen.
Yeah.
Because Amen-Ra is an Egyptian god.
Yes, I've heard that, yeah.
So who are they directing their prayers to,
Yeah, so is that definitely, I mean, I've heard it said, but is that definitely the origin of amen? It hasn't got some ancient Hebrew meaning?
It does. It is a Hebrew-derived term for closing.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, but like anything, there's double meanings, and I think those are,
so
can be subversive.
Yeah, sure. So it's more like saying "so be it."
Yeah.
But then, do you really need to say that when actually, by saying a prayer to an external deity, whatever, and so be it? It still sounds like pleading to me. You shouldn't really need to say that.
Right.
Just straight talking you, because the universe kind of knows your intention anyway, is how I like to look at it. Like I can never remember the guy's name. There was some Japanese doctor who did those experiments with water, and you speak kind words and ugly words.
Nakamoto.
Bingo, that's the guy. Yeah. And again, so the food we eat is probably 70% water. And they've got kids saying this dull as ditch water rubbish called grace in school. Well, they did when I was at school. And everybody's all like, for what we're about to receive, may the Lord make us truly thankful. And all anybody wanted to do was get stuck in, but it's like they've completely robbed the original meaning of that. When it's speaking health and positivity into that which you're about to take into your body.
Right.
And that's like the scripture. I can never remember where these things are written, but where it says in the last days there will be people having a form of godliness but denying its power. That's exactly where religion is right now.
That's true.
And has been for 1,000 years.
Wow.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, prayer, that's interesting. I think it is powerful, but instead of thanking God for the food, I think people should thank those who grew it, who farmed it, who cooked it, who prepared it. I was driving down the road the other day and I saw somebody put out a sign in their front yard that says, Jesus loves you. And I thought to myself, why are they putting that on Jesus? Why don't they just say, I love you, Yeah,
be a thing. Because we're called to emulate Jesus after all. So Yeah.
So, I think we need to have more of a human connection.
Yeah.
We can't make Jesus do all the heavy lifting here.
No.
He's a great teacher, but he's not cracked up to be what the Christian religion has made him.
No, I think there is a great need for everyone, myself included, to own our poo-poo, so to speak, you know.
Right.
Yeah, to adopt responsibility for things. Again, I
Yeah.
mean, the whole way the world is geared, of course, then we can get into maritime law and all of this. This is another whole crazy belief system that's why is it you know you go into a courtroom and it's laid out like a ship.
Yep.
And you know all the stuff about our money's stored in banks, river banks, and it's all about cash flow and you default on a payment and you end up in a courtroom and they've got you swearing on the Bible. So it's everything. Oh goodness, it's so confusing. I don't want to go off on too much of another tangent, but I just think it's all the same. It's the same mind control. It's like we're trapped. We're already in hell of a fashion, and everyone's born into it. And you know, on the birth certificate, it said. It doesn't say who is the parent or the mother and father, the informant.
Yeah.
In other words, you're the guilty one who just ratted your kid out to the system, which is going to enslave it for the rest of its days. And your dead legal fiction and all of the entire system. And why is the church a tax exempt organisation exactly? That's a bit of a giveaway to me.
Right.
Everything about life is there to prevent miracles from happening.
Wow, that's profound. Yeah.
Pretty much. And but when I say miracles happening, take it literally or simply that life could be so much sweeter than it is if we didn't have the fear, we didn't have the thought police to contend with, and the banks and debt collectors and usury, and you know, before you're even born, you're probably already millions of pounds or dollars in debt to the system. And they put you on these stupid they send you to university and you end up like 40,000-60,000 pounds in debt, and you're screwed before you've even got out the door. You know, everything about life is. Anyway, I'm very vocal. It's a good job. I've got the right job, you know, being running a radio show. I talk too much, but I get so passionate about this stuff. But yeah, everything is there to stop miracles from happening. True freedom.
Very interesting. So do you know much about the Muslim faith?
Not a huge amount. You've probably the extent of it I covered. You said you'd watch my black cube symbolism video. I can't even remember what it's called now, but
Saturn black cube symbolism.
So it's the Kaaba. They march around, I think, anti-clockwise when they make their Hajj. The point is, it's a black cube, just like the tefillin or phylacteries that the Jews wear, and it's just another form of mind control. Go ahead, man.
Well, yeah, the reason why is because basically they believe Allah is above Yahweh or part of the same group. And like I said, that derives from Kronos and Saturn. So that's why it's called the cube of Saturn. But I do believe they're both under similar mind control. Yeah. But basically, they believe in all the prophets, but they believe that the Torah and the Bible are corruptions. So I can kind of see where they're coming from, but they think that Muhammad is the last prophet and that he has the most pure and correct scripture. And that occurred hundreds of years after Jesus. So technically, that's the most modern religion. and they're the biggest circumcisers. So I had to look into them. And
that surprised me, actually. I think it was Jenna told me about that, because I thought they practiced female genital mutilation.
They do.
I didn't. Well, yes, as well, but I didn't realize they circumcised until actually I did remember seeing a video on it. They got some sort of celebrity Muslim guy who, you want to get your kid circumcised by this TV celebrity type. And I just thought it's repulsive, all of it. Anyway, sorry, carry on.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting to contrast the two rituals, because on the Jewish side, they go into a temple and the mohel does all these they're doing these chanting. The grandfather and father holding the baby down. He cuts the penis and the mohel sucks the penis. He's literally drinking the blood. It's satanic ritual abuse and adrenochrome harvesting. They all get high on it. It's disgusting. Whereas on the Muslim side, it's more like a initiation ceremony. It's a coming of age thing, and they put the kids in fancy robes and do huge parties and bestow money and gifts and make the child feel like it's the best day of his life. And they don't really understand what's about to happen to them, but it occurs at age 7.
Okay.
So I can only imagine the difference in psychological and emotional trauma. I mean, this boy is basically fully conscious, fully developed. He has a sense of himself, his independence, and his family members. And then to be betrayed like that and tricked, because it's supposed to be a happy party. And while he's being held down and tortured, everybody is cheering and laughing and having a great time. It's got to be the worst version of it, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's pretty horrendous. I mean, I bet the poor kids are really thinking, what the hell's to celebrate here? Because they must have a clue what's going on. They must be terrified.
They are.
And they're being given all this money by all these people smiling and stuff. And it's, if that isn't like an allegory for what Christ must have felt when he was carrying his cross to his own crucifixion.
Yeah.
In a manner of speaking, it's a very similar blood sacrifice. Oh yeah,
for sure. Yeah, they're basically told that it'll make them a man, it'll make them a stronger boy. But I've heard accounts and I've seen the video, and these boys are devastated. They're crying and telling the doctor to put it back. Why did you cut me? It's horrific. It's so sad. And they do cut the girls too, not in all of the tribes, but in a large percentage of the tribes. And a lot of it is done as infants in the hospital. There's all different degrees of female cutting. Some of them are actually sewed up completely so that they cannot have intercourse until their wedding night. And so that re-traumatizes these poor girls, because on their wedding night, they're being ripped open by their husband, either cut or painfully penetrated. And I hate how they treat their women. They put them in trash bag looking burqas, whatever they're called. And, it looks like they're slaves. And
I've heard some backward countries, mum gets pregnant because they haven't got any sort of, they don't go to the hospital and have an ultrasound and, it's a boy, it's a girl. The baby pops out, it's a girl, and they dump it in the gutter outside because they didn't want it. They want a boy, not a girl. I don't know if that still goes on, but in living memory, I know that kind of horror has taken place.
But the circumcision of the Muslims is definitely some kind of egregore mind control, because they don't really have a biblical reason for it. I mean, it is said to be one of the fitras. A fitra is basically a hygiene thing. and Muhammad recommended 5 fitras. There's like trimming the fingernails, trimming the hair, cutting off part of my dick, and it's like, wait a minute, how is that a simple hygiene thing, So it's not a very good reason, in my opinion.
Amazing the excuses people make, huh?
Yeah, crazy. So it's got to be more of a mind control thing, and
Yeah.
it's the same as the Jewish and the mind control from these off-world egregores. But I think these things are powerful because I think it's well established that they feed on suffering. Some people call it loosh.
Yeah.
Have you heard of that?
Yeah.
But basically, it's radiation that is emitted from our pain and trauma. Just like if you were to cut your arm, like a superficial wound or whatever, the body will emit radiation or energy to that area to heal it, right?
Yeah.
So in the same way that we're suffering physical or emotional pain, our body is emitting large amounts of energy and radiation that these spiritual things feed on.
So you think there really are spirits?
Oh yeah, so
okay,
right, because in satanic ritual abuse, the whole purpose of blood sacrifice is to invoke demonic energies, whether it's for the practitioner or whether it's to basically fill the victim with those demons, right? So these entities are summoned from suffering, and even the Catholic Church knows this because the Catholic Church has been doing exorcisms for thousands of years, and that is how they do it. They invoke suffering. They either torture the person to get the demon out, So they know this. But that's how these demonic energies work, is they feed on extreme pain and extreme torture.
It's interesting. I remember seeing within the context of Christianity, I saw a guy had a demon cast out of him many years ago. The whites of his eyes turned blood red.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was something else. I mean, and what can I say? The guy is, I don't have anything to do with him now. I haven't seen him in years, but I hear he is still to this day incredibly damaged goods.
Oh, no. So sad.
Yeah. It makes you wonder what goes on. So the reason I asked if you actually believed in dark spiritual entities is because it kind of sounds like, to some listening, it kind of sounds like we've been doing this total deconstruction of religion and everything, and almost coming at things from an atheist perspective. Some might view it that way, but as I say, far from it. I absolutely 100% believe in the Most High. That makes sense to me, but and no doubt there are other entities. I'm an entity, you're an entity, everyone listening's an entity. I need to say hi to some folk, actually. I've been ignoring them all evening. I'll do that in a minute. But yeah, we're all living, breathing beings, and I saw a ghost when I was 14. I saw the light when I was 28. I've felt spirits, disembodied spirits and things. And if anyone's going to pick up on an entity, it's me. There's an alleyway about a half a mile up the road from us, and you can walk up and down this alleyway just fine during the daytime, but you walk up this alleyway at night. Ooh, goodness me. I get halfway along and the hairs on the back of my neck stand up on my arms, and I know I'm getting goosebumps even talking about it.
Yeah.
Something really bad happened there many years ago. Apparently, the village I live was renowned for pirates. We're quite near the coast, and there's supposed to be some underground tunnels where booty was, whatever, treasure chests and stuff were probably dragged through the tunnels and stashed under, I don't know, in some vault under a church or something. So we know some pretty high crimes took place. But I think whether it was a ritual thing or a really traumatic slaughter that took place or something, I don't know. But it's like a disembodied spirit of some kind, and I pick up on it all the time. And I say I haven't even walked up this alleyway for 2 or 3 years, but I pick up on it. I know there's something there, and so of course there are going to be, to my mind, it's logical, there are going to be higher beings and lower beings and whatnot. So I just wanted to kind of set that straight, really. But so I sort of think, I don't know, the egregoric thought, you see, I was wondering, it's almost, or the tulpa, I should say, I suppose, it's almost like we conjure for ourselves an imaginary friend. So did that entity actually exist beforehand, or is it something that, with our ability to manifest the power of prayer that we have, we've actually brought this kind of entity, which might be nothing more than a segmented off part of our subconscious, but we've actually brought this thing into being. And so contrast that with the existence of possibly malevolent spiritual entities. I don't know. Let's come to that. I want to hold that thought, actually. I want to say, I've got to say hi to some of the folk in the chat here. Sorry I've been ignoring you all. We've got Drugged Up Donkey in the house. Good to see you. We've got One Easy Money, Ray 80, Shorty 222. We've got Noddy. Chappie, good to see you. We've got RV, good to see you, man. And thank you very much for the donations. We've got DJ Ash in the house as well. Thank you very much for the donation there. Droopy 10 in the house. And anyone else before we carry on? Because I like to be inclusive with our diverse audience and all of that. Right. Anyway, I've said hi to a bunch of people. I know there's others lurking and what have you. So hi to you as well. Right. I've done that. Right. Where will we going? So is it a tulpa? Is it a compartmentalized part of our subconscious that we've manifested effectively through the power of prayer, we've manifested into being? Like we've conjured a prison for ourselves, something we believe to be God, perhaps, which keeps us from progressing too far in life. Or how do you square that away with the, I don't know, entities? What are your thoughts? Is it one and the same thing? What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I don't claim to have it all figured out, but I do think there are positive and negative energies and entities out there that we can interface with. So, I know some people, like in witchcraft and Wicca, they try to interface with these entities, and I don't think it's safe, so I'm not going to do it.
No, sure.
But, I think it is possible. But I try to live as a human. I'm really trying to focus on the here and now and myself and the people around me. But a lot of the questions that religion tries to answer, they're like the existential questions, like why am I here and where am I going and all these big questions. But I really think that we can kind of provide those fulfillment on our own, like instead of asking why am I here, like we can create our own meaning, we can create a legacy and do things that we're proud of. So I guess I just don't really worry about those existential stuff and the unknown. I'm just trying to focus on what I observe and how to improve things. As an engineer, I'm always tinkering and trying to improve things. And that's basically what I'm doing with religion. I'm trying to learn the good things from it, but also point out the corruption of it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's how I would explain it.
Yeah. So, and again, that I think wasn't this from one of the Gnostic Gospels or something? That which is within you, if you don't bring forth that which is within you, the gift that you've got, it will destroy you, or something. So yeah, whatever talent we've got. I mean, I tried for years to be a pop star. I've written loads, and I've co-written over 400 songs.
Wow, that's so cool.
A whole lot. We've released albums and all sorts, but nobody's ever heard of us. We
send it to me. I'll be your fan.
Cool. But that's kind of me writing the music and doing the production and engineering, and
wow.
And then there's a guy.
So cool.
There's a guy, he writes lyrics and sings and plays a bit of sax and stuff like that. And we just record. And we'd done that for 15 years, pretty much. But we never gigged. Not interested in gigging. We just wanted to create. But it doesn't matter. We didn't get anywhere. And who knows? Who knows? A miracle might happen one day, and we'll middle of next week, we'll be multi-millionaires and stuff. We're too old to be pop stars. We'll, let the youngsters have some fun from that, but we'll take the dividends. That'll be a very nice nest egg to retire on. But the point is whether anything comes of it or not, I still brought forth that which was within me.
Yep.
At the time. It's a shame it hasn't gone anywhere. And I suppose I'm doing it again. I'm always reinventing myself. For the last 6 years, I've been running a radio show and hopefully getting better and better at it, Yeah. But
awesome.
It's trying to bring out what you've got at the core of your being, that which you're most passionate about. Mm-hmm. And this is it. And I think how tragic it is, like the song, isn't it? Shoulda, woulda, coulda are the last words of a fool. I should have done this, and I should have tried this, but I didn't. And I spent my life blaming everyone else and blaming God for whatever. But I should. And again, this is part of what held me back, was corrupted beliefs.
Yeah.
I think largely is what prevented me from perhaps being a bit more successful. But then when you find out about the music industry and how mired in ritualistic filth that is, who wants to be part of that anyway? So it's a catch-22. So I kind of don't regret it for that reason. But anyway, back on to what we were talking about. I think, absolutely, we've more emphasis should be put on life right here, right now, being present.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with being human. So often people are relenting to mystic cults or mystic religions. And mysticism is defined as the effort to connect with higher beings, right?
Yeah.
So I just don't think it's necessary. I think we can become better people on our own and with the people that we surround ourselves with.
Yeah. Although I think, as I say, I can't help. It's like, I don't know, I've got this knowing without knowing quite what it is, but I know there's a higher being, and it's like every now and again I'll have a dream, and it could be a funny dream, the most random thing. I could be walking up a staircase and into a room with loads of pictures on the walls and a certain conversation taking place, and I'll wake up and I have no idea what that's about, and then 3-4 years later I'll find myself walking up a flight of stairs into a room with loads of pictures in, and I hear a conversation, and it's like it suddenly comes back to me, I dreamt this.
Yeah, I've done that too.
And I take that, is how I take it, is that's just a little reminder from our friends in high places that you're on the right track.
Yep.
You're doing exactly what you're meant to be doing.
Yeah, I have those all the time. I love it.
Yeah. And so that stuff is outside of time and space. It's like it's already happened, but we're having to walk the time within the messed universe, as the Scientologists call it, matter, energy, space, and time.
Yeah.
We're still having to live out what's already happened.
Yeah, it's a shame that the Scientology extorts so much money out of people, because other than that, I agree with their teachings.
Yeah, very much. I mean, they see it as a fair exchange.
Yeah, but people go into millions of dollars of debt, you know.
Oh, I know. It's crazy. And again, is it so different from the Abrahamic religions on that score? It's there are truths there that are so valuable, could set so many people free, and yet once again they've become so corrupted and so potentially damaging.
Yeah.
I mean, I got out right around the point where, in my opinion, things were starting to get a little bit crazy. I think the last course I did before I bailed, and when I bailed, I'd planned to move out of the area. And so I moved. I left no forwarding address, and I changed my phone number. But the last course I did, they had me shouting at an ashtray. and it didn't. The daft thing is, again, even the Scientologists, they're so religiously minded, they're so locked in dogma. It just so happened that L. Ron Hubbard, the founder of Scientology, he happened to have an ashtray to hand, and he was instructing people using this as a it's an exercise in the power of intention. And he happened to grab hold of this ashtray and he shouted at it. It was like, sit on the chair. And he'd pick it up and he'd sit it on the chair. And he'd be, get on the table. And he'd pick it up and forcefully put it on the table. And it's almost like you're trying to G up within yourself this violence to the point where you are so absolutely sure of your sovereignty you can command anything into being.
Wow, that's cool.
It's cool to a point.
Yeah.
And then they send you out onto the streets to drag poor sods like me in.
Yeah.
And with that amount of willpower behind you, who can resist?
Oh,
and
wow.
It's more money.
Yep. Wow.
So I sussed that out pretty quick.
Well, good for you. I've seen a bunch of documentaries on it. It's super fascinating.
Yeah, it is. It is, and it's so powerful.
Yeah.
And another exercise I did. I think this was it was a communications course I did with them, and by communications, this isn't telephones and emails and stuff. This is how people interact. And you know, when I was a kid, I was so insecure. I'm having a little bit of a problem because the camera's not directly in line of the monitor. I'm looking more at the monitor. But when I was a kid, I'd be talking to someone and I'd be kind of looking anywhere but in their eyes. I couldn't make eye contact with people. And I thought nothing of it, but I could never understand why people kept walking away and they didn't want to have a conversation with me. I thought it was them rejecting me. I didn't realize, no, actually, I might not realize it. I need this pointing out because I'm bringing this on myself.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as it was pointed out, it's like, my goodness, why wasn't I taught this at school? This should be rudimentary stuff.
Yeah.
Incredibly healthy, and it changed everything. You know, totally built up my confidence and everything, you know, and yeah, I still have my dark days, believe you me. But life has definitely gotten so much better. And I've got to thank, in part, Scientology for that. But the way I like to look at it is when I went to Christian church, I cried out to God for all those years for healing, and healing never came, and it never came. And then I walked out and I happened upon Scientology by accident, or so it seems. And I like to put it like this, that God gave me the tools I needed to begin to fix myself. In other words, don't be helpless.
Right.
You've got this. And yeah, that's God helping me out. A benevolent figure, you know. Anyway, listen, I've been hogging the mic again. I'm terrible. We have got 15 minutes. We've been talking nearly 2 hours. It's so easy done, I find. So I don't want to hog any more, although I probably will. But with 15 minutes to go, roughly, any other stuff that you'd like to talk about that you think's really important?
Well,
no pressure. No pressure.
Yeah. No. Thanks for sharing your story about that. I got involved in the Christian church again, probably 5 or 6 years ago. I was going through some crises and trying to figure some things out, and I wasn't really feeling much resolution from the services, so I went to small men's group, and we met on an odd night. I think it was Wednesday night or something.
Yeah.
And they reinforced some good things and some practical things, which was helpful. More so to men with families. I was in a relationship, but I didn't have a family. And anyway, long story short is there were some things going on that they had no idea how to help with, as far as mental health and psychological conditions and stuff like that. And so, yeah, I realized they didn't have all the answers. And the problem was they were only looking in the Bible, you know? And so I just think people, you know, they need to widen their viewpoint. They need to look into other things, psychology, trauma, counseling, community, everything. We need to have a holistic approach and look into the ancient comparative mythology. That really helped me to figure out where is all this religious stuff coming from and how does it all tie together. You know, that's really interesting to me. And it also kind of helps lessen the fear and the control aspect of what we were raised in, you know? So I think that's important, and that could really help people.
Yeah, I'm And again, you could almost say that's almost a bit syncretic in a way. It's not being so narrow-minded, daring to explore other things. And at the end of the day, not everything's going to work for everyone. Established Christianity didn't work for me, but I, like you, I think the words of Jesus largely is there's nothing wrong with that at all. It's a good way to live generally, and I think the forgiveness, the grace, we can all learn so much from that. And I suppose I've been having a strange thought the last couple of days. It just popped into my mind, and we've got 10 minutes and we're off air, and I'm just about to launch into this biggie. Maybe you see, whether we say as above so below, or here on earth as it is in heaven, or the micro and the macro, I can't remember where, but somewhere, is it the case that somewhere, I think, is it the Old Testament, where God repented?
I haven't heard that.
It might have been something, I don't know, was it Moses or Abraham? Whatever it was, but there was something God was going to do. Do you know what? I can't remember. But then there was the story of the woman in, what was it? Jesus, kind of, wasn't it, shooing someone away, and they said even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from the master's table. And it's almost like, was Jesus in error for shunning someone, and then someone in their humility called themselves a dog effectively and said even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from the master's table? At that moment, Christ himself repented. And so I kind of got to thinking, is God trying to tell us that just like human beings, right since the beginning of time as we know it, Old Testament through to New Testament, maybe God's trying to admit that, look, I did some bad things in my past, and now I'm trying to put things right. Because most people get, the story of the prodigal son, it's a peculiar way of, it's just the way I think. I think outside the box on so many levels, and I even dare to wonder if God is trying to admit that. It's a peculiar thing, but we were created in the image of God, and we all make mistakes, and hopefully we all come back to the truth in the end. So that was, just a passing thought there.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think God needs to be held responsible for a lot of this, He could have prevented it, or he could intervene anytime he wants, but I don't think it's that simple. I don't think our understanding of it is very accurate. There's lots of religions and mythologies that try to explain it, but we won't know, so all I can do is focus on myself and the people around me and trying to learn and just spread love and learning and open-mindedness. That's basically my mission.
Yeah, that's it. And are you seeing, would you say, I don't know, the world's in a right mess at the moment, as we know. I think I had another passing thought. You know, the kind of the LGBTQ movement and whatever. You know, I've got, you know, I know plenty of gay people who are really opposed to the movement. Because I think it's angering people so much, and eventually something's going to snap. And the problem is, a lot of innocent people who just want to get on with their lives are going to end up getting caught in the crossfire. But you see, it's almost. I wonder if they've chosen the rainbow flag as a challenge to God, because the rainbow was God's promise that he would never again flood the earth. And yet, if I was God right now and I'm looking down at the state of the earth and all the psychopathic bankers and politicians and whatever, I'm not, I don't associate with the left or the right. I call myself a bit of an anarchist. I don't trust any of them. But I wonder, particularly with how the LGBTQ agenda, which I think it's a religion in itself, and are they a pretty satanic one, I think, as well. And it's almost like, are they holding the rainbow flag up and saying, you promised, God, you promised you'd never flood us, the earth again, and therefore we can get away with murder, literally.
Yeah.
And yet, what I see going on is all of these adherents to the agenda. They're sacrificial lambs, because they're just getting burlesqued, and you know, I pity those people. They know not what they do.
Yeah. Well, I think God's chosen people are behind all of these subversive movements. I'm talking about Israel and the Jews. Yeah.
I guess you kind of Jewish yourself?
No. I was raised Judeo-Christian, you know,
right.
Old Testament, New Testament, but no, I'm not Jewish. But I think that they've had a monopoly on power for thousands of years, and they control the United States for sure. Where I live, every politician is bought and sold by Israel.
Yeah.
It's basically, we're basically Greater Israel at this point, and I'm really upset about what they're doing to the Palestinians.
Yeah.
Been going on a couple years now, but really it's been going on for like 6 or 7 decades, because they've been occupying Palestinian land against international law. So, but you know, since they're God's chosen people, they can basically get away with anything they want. So it's a pattern thousands of years old, and you know, that they can wield that. And I don't support that, and I don't support their God, and you know, it's sad people get caught up in it.
But again, it's the very act of circumcision and deep trauma at 8 days of age is how they are dragged into this egregore, which makes them carry out unspeakable acts in the name of God.
That's right. Yep. It's the trauma bonding and the wounding, the disposition to violence. So it's I think it's the mark of the beast.
Okay, listen, we've got a minute and a half and we're off air. So that was an interesting way to end it. We can carry on chatting for a while, but we're going off air on the main platform. So very quickly, where can people find you?
I have a YouTube channel called Restored Members, and I started it for foreskin restoration, and it's basically the practice of using devices to regrow a foreskin. And I provide information on that. So if you're interested in that, check it out. I have a documentary that explains the motivations for circumcision, and it does get pretty deep, but I think it's pretty insightful. And I'm excited to do some interviews. And thanks, Joss, for having me on. And I really appreciate it.
That's great. Well, stick around for a few minutes, but I've got to say right now, so folk listening on D Live, etc., Studio 8424, WTFR.net, don't go away. But you lovely people listening on WBN 324, that's it from Jeff and myself, and I'll catch you Sunday with Rhea. Bye-bye for now.
Cool. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, right. I was just having a quick word with Jeff behind the scenes there. So, well, like I say, not that I'm trying to get rid of you. I've really enjoyed the conversation. Thanks for agreeing to come on. As I say, it was all off the strength of watching your documentary, which was very hard hitting. I've dropped the link in the chat. I'll embed that in the description as well.
Awesome.
But yeah, I say it's up to you. If you need to head off, great. I mean, we've been going at it 2 hours. I'm used to doing this. I can go 5 hours.
You're cool. You're amazing. I love listening to your stuff. Really, really great content and giving people the ability to question the narrative and think for themselves, and really cool stuff.
Yeah, cheers, man. Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you for having me on.
All right, man. Well, yeah, email me a bunch of links tomorrow or later, whenever, and
Okay.
I'll embed that in the description, and we'll stay in
All right.
touch.
I will. Thank you. Have a great weekend.
All right, and yourself, man. You take care. Bye-bye.
Adios. Bye.